Hey everyone, my name is James and welcome back to ChippyGaming. So today, we're back for another round of Terraria 1.4 news, and today's video will be focused all around rebalancing and reimagining some of the classic items and also bosses in Terraria. So some of you may remember that 1.4 was once 1.3.6, and one of the initial promises with that update is that the team really wanted to take a look at every aspect of Terraria and really assess, what could be improved and what might need to be changed. And it seems today we're actually seeing light of some of those big changes, which I think are going to have some pretty big effects, especially in regards to some of the items that have been in the game for a pretty long time now. So to kick things off, let's take a look at some of the changes that are meant to prevent cheesing in Terraria. And no shame here, I've used all of these methods myself, but we have covered them on the channel before. So we found out once again that Golem is getting a new change, but we don't know what it is. We have heard that it's only in expert mode, but I really hope it makes it to some of the other modes. I really like Golem, but I would definitely like to see him get buffed up a little bit. We now know that King Slime can teleport if you're using a rope to try and cheese him. Well, that's my method out the window. And then finally, we just found out that the Moonlord laser will now actually pass through blocks. So if you're using the method where you have a big platform and you fly around using a UFO key, you'll need to change up your strategy just a little bit. Alright, this is where things get really interesting. This is my favorite part of the forum post. So just as always, if you do want to read more, you can find a link to this down below. So first up to be reimagined is the short sword, and I feel like most players can agree the short sword is only really useful if you want to make a meme about defeating the Moonlord with a copper short sword. But yeah, they've been revamped, so instead of firing on a single axis, you can now alternate the way that you thrust the weapon forward, and this is going to make it a lot more useful, especially if you're in a situation where you're moving backwards. You can now angle the shot a little bit differently, and I think it might make them finally usable. For real, I don't think I've ever enjoyed a single thrust of a short sword before, but this looks really cool. So flails have been reimagined as well because they were looking a little too similar to yo-yos. So now instead of just flinging out from the character, you can swing it around your player to have an AoE effect. And then I imagine once you let go of that mouse click, it then fires forward and drags along the floor. So just making them a lot more unique, especially once again compared to yo-yos. So the charged blaster cannon got some love, and I really like what Relogic wrote here. Yesterday's throwaway weapon from the Martian Madness event, and then in brackets, what? Don't look at us like that. Don't act like you ever used the thing. Is today's death-dealing space laser of doom. And yeah, I really like the change here. So it starts off by firing out these pulses and then kind of turns into a last prism. It's a lot better. So the Christmas tree sword got some love, and I really liked the original simply because of the sound effect. I never really cared too much about it as a sword, but now when you fire it, it will launch baubles and a star into the air, and it actually forms like a Christmas tree. And then those baubles will then drop down onto the enemies down below. Truth be told, I would probably have to see this one in action when the sword is swinging a little bit faster to really tell if this is going to be a big change, but I actually quite like it. So they've made some changes to the Medusa head. Now, I'm going to level with all of you. I've actually never used a Medusa head in Terraria 1.3. The thing is, I never seem to find them. I never found them when they were a pre-hard mode enemy, and I definitely don't find them now that they're a hard mode enemy. So yeah, this is definitely different, but I actually don't know what's different about it, so maybe you guys can point this one out for me. So one change I'm definitely excited about is one to the Wand of Sparking. Now, I find that the Wand of Sparking is a perfectly acceptable weapon, but only really in normal mode. I think once you take it to expert mode, it kind of falls flat. So now it's got 30% extra damage. Its speed is slightly increased. It has a little bit more percentage of critical strike chance. And it also inflicts on fire a little more frequently. So yeah, I really like this one. As a big mage player in Terraria, I actually can't wait to check this out. Speaking about mage weapons, the magic missile has actually seen some love as well. Now, this is a weapon, when I first found it, I was quite excited about it, but since then, I haven't really used it. So apparently it's now more lethal and fun than ever before. So the projectile is faster, but then once you release it, it has homing as well. And then once it explodes, it has an AoE effect. So just makes it more useful all around. And then let's move on to armor. Now, this one is a pretty big one. So many people know right now that titanium is a little weirdly placed. I always thought that it was too good for its own good. So now the shadow dodge effect from titanium has been given to hallowed armor, which makes complete sense because hallowed armor is ahead of titanium armor. So what happened to titanium then? Well, as you attack enemies, you'll now have these titanium shards that float around your character and deal damage to some of the enemies around you. And this is alright. I mean, I don't really have any strong opinions about this because I did always think that titanium was a little too OP, and all they've done is take the effect that I actually did like and given it to the next tier up. So I think any kind of compromise here, yeah, it just makes sense to me. So Stardust armor is getting a change, and it's actually in relation to the Guardian. So it has a brand new attack and will apparently attack automatically without prompting. So this is great for summoners. So then we've also got a change to solar armor. So apparently now it has more defense, and also it has a passive regen effect. So apparently instead of having a 30% damage reduction when you have charges, part of the armor damage reduction is now active at all times, with the amount actually increasing when you have shield charges. And apparently the recharge time on a shield is now reduced by 1 second. So that was quite a lot to get through, but thankfully this last section, it really speaks for itself. So we got some before and afters of some of the overhauls we're seeing to some of the art assets that have been in the game for quite some time now. A lot of the ones that are popping up here are actually ones from Terraria 1.2, even some of them that have been touched up in the past. And we can see here, and I'm no artist, but they seem to have added a lot more shadow to a lot of the enemies that are popping up. And I actually really like all of them. I've got no real complaints. I think though, at the end of the day, art is something that's always subjective. So maybe you'll feel a little bit different than I do, but I think they're great. I really like them. That being said, I'll always miss classic sprites, but you know what? When I go back to 1.3.5 in 10 years, I'm going to feel really nostalgic because I won't see them anymore. Yeah, I think what we're looking at here today is great. Alright, so I think that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I just wanted to say at the end of today's video, a massive thank you to the community for being so positive and so supportive around these videos. So for those that don't know, I've actually been talking about Terraria news for 9 years now, about 7 years really consistently, and I've never really had the community be so electric around the channel. And it's really appreciated. Honestly, I look forward to making each and every one of these videos. It's a shame that one day we won't have any more news to cover, but we will have a fantastic update. And at the end of the day, that's the best outcome. Right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you are new around here, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button. With 1.4 on the horizon, I'm going to make sure that you have lots of content to tide you over until that big update. And then once it's out, I'm going to give you guys loads of guides on how to get all the optional stuff with the update, and maybe even some guides on some of those master mode bosses, because I know a lot of you are going to want to tackle that, but you got to do it right. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Peace.